Well, welcome and good evening, everyone. I'm Wendy Jansen with the National Park Service, and I'm the superintendent of the Appalachian National Scenic Trail. And I want to thank each and every one of you so much for joining us tonight. We share information concerning the Visitor Use Management Plan for Virginia's Triple Crown. Your engagement is critical to the continued preservation and protection of the AT, and your comments will help inform the development of this plan. So once again, welcome and thank you for joining us this evening. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Rachel Collins, to kick off the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. I'm going to just do a little bit of an orientation before we get into the meat of the presentation and into the major content. We're on Zoom tonight, so folks may have gotten adjusted to Zoom. A couple key things that you're going to see in your toolbar. The chat feature is where we're going to be pushing through references to documents, links, other resources that might be helpful for you. All of those are found on the park on the planning website, and we're going to show you that link multiple times, send it multiple times, so you'll be able to see that. But we want to also let you know if you have want those direct links to specific resources we mentioned, we're going to send those through chat. If you have a question throughout this presentation, please use the Q&A feature to submit that question. That's really going to help us collect those questions and keep them organized. We're going to be saving questions till the end of the presentation. We have about 25 slides or so that we're going to go through. So again, don't feel like you have to remember your question. Feel free to drop it in that Q&A box. We'll start there. And if you have questions as we go throughout the conversation, feel free to continue to put those in there. Also wanted to let folks know that we do have closed captioning available for this meeting. That closed captioning is available in both English and Spanish. It'll open in another browser window. We'll send that link through in the chat as well. There is also Spanish language captioning available. So if that is a resource that's helpful for you, that will be provided as well. And Maria, do you want to jump on to say anything else about Spanish language captioning?
Buenas noches. Solo les quería comunicar si necesitan hacer preguntas por medio del icono del chat, pueden hacerlo. Si tienen alguna pregunta, pueden usar el icono de levantar la mano que sale en el medio o el icono de preguntas y respuestas, y al final de la reunión las preguntas serán respondidas. En el chat pueden ver los links para las personas que necesiten subtítulos en español. I think that covers it, Rachel. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Also wanted to let folks know that this meeting is being recorded. After this meeting, we'll go ahead and put the captions with it together and post it online, so it will be available to watch back later. That link to the meeting will also be posted on the project website later on. Wanted to let you know as we move throughout this presentation, you're going to be hearing from, like you just heard from Wendy Jansen, the Appalachian National Scenic Trail Superintendent, as well as myself. I'm Rachel Collins. I am the project manager for visitor use for the National Park Service. So I'll be sharing some content with you as well. Again, if you have questions as you go, feel free to drop them into the Q&A. We'll dive into that as we get towards the end of the presentation. When we get to that Q&A section, we have a number of different panelists on with us from our different partner agencies to help answer questions. They're all listed here. You'll get to meet them during the Q&A, and you heard from us as we were kind of getting ramped up at the beginning of this presentation as well. But look forward to seeing and hearing from those folks as we get into the Q&A. And if you have questions for any of them, feel free to, again, drop that into the Q&A. So for this presentation, we are going to, we've just been going over introductions, kind of getting oriented a little bit. We're going to be talking about partner organizations. We also want to get folks oriented to both the trail as a part of the National Park Service system and as a critical part of our just American natural resources and recreational resources, tell you why it's a part of these two systems and what's really critical about those designations. and then use that to help us jump into what are some of the contextual pieces for this project specifically as we think about the Triple Crown in Virginia. Why this project, what are we trying to solve, and what are we hoping to accomplish with it, and then getting into those Q&As. While I'm here, also wanted to note for folks that there is a second meeting on March 17th. It is the same format, same content as this meeting, so you're welcome to join us again for that second meeting. If you have an emerging question that comes up or want to hear it again, but know that it's the same content, and so you don't need to come to both to get all of the information that's available during this public comment period. So with that, I just wanted to lead off by saying thank you so much for dedicating a part of your evening to being with us and for attending. More information on all of the things that we're going to talk about is available on the plan website, which is the URL is there, parkplanning.mps.gov/appofweb. And we're so excited for your thoughts. We are coming out early in this comment period because we really want the people who care about this place and are engaged in this place to have a voice in our process early on. And so really looking forward to your feedback, really looking forward to hearing your questions. And we're going to talk a little bit more about questions and the type of feedback that we're looking for and how to comment when we get to the end of the meeting. But just wanted to let you know that that is the whole root of this process, is to hear from you and your thoughts and your feedback on what you love, value, and would like to see on this section of the trail. So with that, I will turn it back over to Wendy to talk a little bit about the partnerships on this section of the trail, as well as the trail itself.
Great, thank you so much, Rachel. And once again, welcome everyone. Well, it's been said that it takes a village to raise a child, and it has certainly taken a village to get us to this point in the planning process. And you see some of the partners on the slide who have helped get us to this point. I want to give them a big, big thank you. Everything that we do along the AT is in collaboration, and the work in the Triple Crown is a wonderful example of partnership for the Appalachian National Scenic Trail. Years ago, we came together with our cooperative management partners, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, the Roanoke Appalachian Trail Club, and the U.S. Forest Service, along with other regional partners that you see on the slide, such as the Virginia Department of Transportation, Roanoke County, and the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission. And we began to discuss issues of mutual concern, interest, opportunities, and challenges. And the Triple Crown Partnership was formed at that time and began to discuss visitor use management issues and utilize the interagency visitor use management framework well before we received National Park Service funding for this specific process and to begin the formal planning process. I want to thank all of these incredible partners for their commitment, engagement, and expertise, without which we would not be where we are today. I like to say that the AT is about the power of place, the power of people, and the power of partnership. And this partnership speaks to the power of what can be accomplished when we come together with a shared vision and shared goals. Next slide, please, Rachel. Thank you. Well, it's really difficult to describe the AT with just a few bullet points on a slide, for it's an incredible national and international resource. As many of you know, it traverses 14 states from Maine to Georgia. It's a little over 2,190 miles long, but it's so much more than a footpath. It's also the largest protected contiguous corridor east of the Mississippi River, with approximately 300,000 acres. It was established as a unit of the National Park Service in 1968 with the passage of the National Trail System Act, and has the second largest boundary of any unit in the entire National Park Service. Two words that we always associate with the AT are scope and scale. However, the AT was first conceived in 1921 by conservationist Benton Mackay. The trail was designed, constructed, and maintained in the 1920s and the 1930s by volunteer hiking clubs, brought together by the nonprofit Appalachian Trail Conference, which was established in 1925 and is now known as the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Today, the AT is preserved and protected by a model cooperative management system with 30 independent trail maintaining clubs, including our local Roanoke Appalachian Trail Club, as well as our partners, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, the U.S. Forest Service. If you didn't know, the AT traverses 8 national forests, as well as 6 other NPS units, 2 national wildlife refuges, and over 60 state parks, forests, game lands, and wildlife management areas. Next slide, please. Thanks, Rachel. Now, I know this slide has a lot of text, but it's directly from our 2015 foundation document, which was developed collaboratively with representatives from across our cooperative management system. And this language can also be found in our 1981 Comprehensive Management Plan for the Appalachian National Scenic Trail. And the purpose statement identifies the specific reasons for the establishment of the AT as a National Scenic Trail, its predominant characteristics, and it lays the foundation for understanding what is most important about the trail. This statement was drafted, through a careful analysis of the trail's enabling legislation and the legislative history that influenced its development. I like to say that in the National Park Service, we're in the perpetuity business. And as noted in this slide, the AT is preserved for the conservation, public use, enjoyment, and appreciation of the nationally significant scenic, historic, natural, and cultural quality of the areas through which it passes. I especially love the verbiage here. The body of the trail is provided by the land it traverses, and its soul is the living stewardship of the volunteers and workers of the Appalachian Trail community. I think it's beautifully crafted, and we could call it poetry. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Rachel to talk about the significance of the AT.
It is poetry. That's so nice. Oh, so lovely. Next set of slides show the significance of the trail as a part of both the National Park Service system as well as the National Scenic Trail systems. When we say the park significance, what we say is that the significance statements articulate what is rare, unique, and exemplary about the trail, what makes it a unique contribution to our system of preservation and of protecting these resources, both for the perpetuity business as well as for public use and enjoyment. I'm going to move through these quickly. There's a lot to go through here. We are gonna, if we haven't already, we're gonna post the link to into the chat for the foundation document for the trail. So you have, you can see it in its full context, both the purpose statement that Wendy shared as well as these significant statements. Of note here, as Wendy noted, the Appalachian Trail is one of the longest and the first trail designated. This trail is a testament to what we can accomplish through collaboration and volunteerism when we're united around a common purpose. Since its inception in 2015, the local club has contributed 7,800 volunteer hours, has spoken to over 75,000 visitors, removed thousands of gallons of trash and hundreds of fire rings. It's a testament to what volunteerism can do and what a united group of people can do, as Wendy noted so eloquently in her introduction. This trail thrives on its partnership model, and it is an international example of collaboration and conservation. This dedication of many creates spaces and experiences that invite visitors into these really varied and important landscapes. It's an important component of what we think about when we think about what really makes this trail special and unique as a resource for us in our national systems. All of these people centered in this space are here with the goal of inviting visitors and other people into this extensive protected landscape that tells its story, along with the story of the shared communities and visitors who are seeking enjoyment, self-reliance, recreation, and connection here. There is this beautiful statement from the Second Century Report for the Park Service that says, our spirits need the experience that the national parks can offer. They help us understand what it means to be fully human. And I think that there's no place that leans into this more than when we see what the trail is here for and what it's being managed for and protecting. We also are seeing that it's not just about the human connection to these landscapes, but the unique contribution that this protected landscape has for itself. This is one of the richest temperate zone species in the world that's protected as a part of the Appalachian Trail corridor, and also is here, like I said earlier, to tell the story about the human use and settlement along the Appalachian mountain range and how that's evolved into distinct and meaningful regional traditions, and how the trail is a part of that story and helps us to tell that story over time. So why go through that? Why settle into that history? It's important to contextualize as we start to think about what the purpose of this planning effort is and what the purpose of this process that we're embarking on is. So the purpose of this visitor use management plan is to help us develop strategies to protect the resources and to be thinking critically about the opportunities for visitors to safely use, experience, and enjoy all those critical resources, values, experiences that we talked about. We really want to be keying into those. We want to be looking at the management options to help us support healthy human safety options to enhance the protection of the natural, cultural, and scenic resources and values that this trail protects and provides for. And we also want to be able to provide a space where visitors are able to come, make a personal connection with each other and with this landscape and the resources that this trail is designated to protect. So when we say the visitor use management plan for this section is for the Triple Crown, what do we mean when we say that? This plan is to be looking at visitor use options for the Triple Crown section, which is between Virginia 620 and Virginia 652. So this includes, as you can see on the map, the Dragon's Tooth, McAfee Knob, Tinker Cliffs, and those areas that are north and west of Roanoke, Virginia. The section is referred to as the Triple Crown because of those three iconic sites, but we also want to be looking at what it means to provide a consistent and seamless experience. So we'll also be looking at the access trails to these areas, the connective portions of trail between those Triple Crown sites, as well as thinking about this as a recreational and natural resources system that's situated on this section of the Appalachian Trail. This plan has gotten started because we have identified a need to develop strategies to address increasing visitor use. And I'm going to say a little bit more about what we mean behind that. We also want to be looking at how do we really show up in a meaningful way to mitigate negative impacts to natural and cultural resources, and also provide guidance for how to update the parking areas to address safety concerns, particularly at McAfee Knob parking area, which is along Virginia Route 311. So for folks who are local, who have been to McAfee Knob recently, you might have experienced this picture for yourself or seen it. There are a lot of people who are accessing this section of the trail. That's a beautiful thing. We have a lot of people trying to access these sections of the trail, and the amount of people both in these parking lots accessing the trailheads and getting up on these trails is sometimes creating crowding levels. That is meaning that people aren't able to achieve the visitor experiences that they were hoping to, and potentially creating a social condition that isn't consistent with our management goals. We want to be thinking about that and also learning more about what that means to y'all as we move through this process. A little data related to that last thought in this issue is that during 2019, the busiest single day on the trail to McAfee Knob specifically was just over 700 people. And about a year later, we saw that number rise to just shy of 1,100 people. Again, I really want to emphasize that this is really good news. People are using the trail. They're discovering the rich experiences that are provided there, and they're coming back and they're bringing their friends and family. And that is a fulfillment of what we're trying to achieve with providing access to these nationally significant resources. One of the things that we're hoping to work on is that the current strategies that we have as managers don't necessarily meet this same use level. They haven't been able to keep pace with the growth. So part of the purpose of this project is to look at new tools and innovative strategies to manage these use levels so that we're providing a more sustainable and enjoyable experience for those who are on the trail. Related to this increase of use, this intensive use in some places is causing unacceptable impacts to some of those key resources that we talked about in park significance. And this includes soils and vegetation cover, water and wildlife. We have noted that there were 330 fire rings removed since 2015 alone. this is a sign or a symptom maybe that visitors are looking for places to spread out. They're looking for more opportunities, both during the day and overnight. And the way that the landscape is currently, the landscape as it is and the tools that we have don't currently support that level of use. And so we want to be providing a sustainable experience as we go forward, both for the resources and for the people in this space. We also want to be really looking at basic trailhead amenities, wayfinding, and other opportunities to support visitor use. We want to be really thoughtful and intentional about the choices that we're making here for which facilities and potential support services fit within the character and purpose of the trail, are sustainable for both managers and for visitors, and help us really lean into our values and protect what's most important about this trail as a resource for us. So if that's what brought us to the table, where are we trying to go? What are our goals associated with the planning space that we're in? We're using a tool called the Interagency Visitor Use Management Framework. And so that is a common framework that we're using amongst us and helps us collaborate across different management agencies to use that as a tool to think about next steps. I'm going to share a little bit more about what that tool looks like and some additional resources on the next slide. We also want to get feedback from the public and our stakeholders about thinking about changing campsites and how we might improve visitor experiences and protect natural resources. And we want to be thinking about options to actively manage parking lots and other access facilities to provide guidance for what those future updates might look like. We also want to be thinking about the range of hiking experiences that happen along these sections of trail and how we can provide a high quality experience regardless of which type of hiker or recreationist you are for this area. So I mentioned on the last slide, here's a little bit more detail about our process overall. The Interagency Visitor Use Management Council is a council of the 6 federal land and water management agencies. And they came together to provide common guidance and shared guidance among the federal land management agencies for how we think about and work through visitor use management problem solving and decision making. So we are hoping that this proactive and collaborative process helps us really maximize the ability to encourage access, improve experiences, and protect resources. And across this process, we want to be looking at a variety of strategies and tools that include education, engineering, and other enforcement solutions to really be thinking about what does a sustainable, well-rounded, high-quality experience look like for both visitors and for the resources. We also just wanted to touch on that there are a number of related projects that are currently underway or about to ramp up, and wanted to let folks know that we are actively coordinating with these projects that are on this slide, knowing that no single project or initiative addresses all issues, but the active collaboration piece inspired by the trail itself is what helps us really get the high quality work done, especially across so many partners. And this collaborative process and the number of engaged partners and stakeholders is what makes this one of my favorite things to work on every day that I show up into this space. So thanks in advance for that. I really appreciate it. And if you have additional questions on any of these related projects, feel free to drop that into the Q&A. We have representatives from each of these projects or near neighbors to them on, and happy to answer any questions that folks might have about the relationship of these projects to the VUM plan that we're working on, or for those projects themselves. So where are we? What is this process? Where are we going? What comes next as far as the big picture overview? So we have initiated this planning effort with the Appalachian Trail Service, with the National Park Service, as well as the partners back in March of 21. And this phase of civic engagement, again, is early on in our process because we really want to be painting a holistic picture and a thoughtful picture about who are our visitors, what do they value about this space, why are they coming, what's maybe interfering with their ability to engage in a high quality experience here, And what options should we be looking at? We want to bring you into the brainstorming process with us to be thinking about what comes next here. We're going to be taking all of that information from the civic engagement series that we're engaged in now, and fueling that forward as we start to think about what are our potential management options, what are our goals going forward, and what are some of the things that we want to be thoughtfully changing into the future. We're going to be working on that over the winter, developing a draft visitor use management plan, and then you'll get to see it and tell us what you think. That public review of the draft VUM plan is targeted for next spring. And then by next summer, we'll be wrapping that up and moving towards implementation. So right now, this month, between now and March 31st is your opportunity to comment on this review period. This, as I've said a couple times, is such an important part of our process to really make sure that we understand the full nature of the issues, what we value about this place and why it's important, not just as a unit of the Park Service, but why it's important to you as a user and a stakeholder, and what we want to be analyzing as far as options going forward. Best place to comment is this URL that's on this slide. Has our key questions on it and a place where you can type them in your own words and submit it directly to us. If that's something that isn't an option available to you, you can also mail your comments to the address on the screen. We also wanted to let folks know what are some of those key questions we're really hoping to learn from you on. So those questions are on the screen. They're also available on the project website, but we really want to hear from y'all about how do you visit and experience this section of the Appalachian Trail now? What are you using it for? How are you using it? What's working, what's not working for you? What are your favorite things about visiting the AT generally and this trail specifically? And if you're not using the trail, do you hope to in the future, or what maybe is interfering with your ability to use the trail the way you'd like to? And if you have other ideas for how you'd like us to consider for balancing visitor use and resource conservation in this area related to camping, group camping, trails, parking, shuttles, accessibility, other AT resources, regional recreation things we should be thinking about, join us in brainstorming on all of those things. We'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas and encourage you to participate in that process with us. So with that, we're going to turn over the rest of the time to answer questions. Emily is on with us. She is my partner from the national office working on this project and a VUM specialist who is going to help walk us through the Q&A tonight. So she's been collecting questions for our panelists. So if you've got a question, we're going to start working through those. If you still have a question or one comes up, again, feel free to go ahead and type that into the Q&A, because what Emily is doing is pulling those together and kind of lumping them into categories. And we will answer as many questions as we can get through with the time that we have left.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. So no questions in the Q&A at this time, but I welcome folks to drop those in. Oh, looks like one came in real time. So question from Martin. I would like to thank you all for your efforts to address the growing pressures of the AT. Can we assume whatever is decided will not overly impact the journeys of through hikers? Let's see, I just want to talk about the balances between the user groups and how we're going to address that in the planning process. Maybe I'll turn this one to you, Rachel.
Yeah, I can get started by saying we do really want to be thinking about the multiple different types of users that are a part of this and who are using this section of trail, what their needs are, how we can meet those, and how what kind of resources they might need to show up in a meaningful way on this section of the trail. So it would be a great thing to know, from the through hiker community, for you, what are your hopes and dreams for this section of the trail? What are you using it for? What are you seeing in issues from your perspective? And what are the opportunities for improvement there? Because we really want to have as many different types of users' voices represented in this comment period. And I've actually already seen that we have correspondence that has come in on this public comment period from at least 6 states as of this morning. So it's great to be hearing from the larger Appalachian Trail community on this local plan.
And if I could, Emily, just this is Wendy Hansen, just to add on to what Rachel described, is once again, at this stage in the planning process, we're identifying issues, and that's where we want to hear from everyone. And it's balancing all the different types of visitor use, because even though we do have our through hikers on the AT, we have other trail visitors, other users, and AT as a unit of the National Park Service is open to all. So we want to hear from everybody and then look through what those strategies might be for best addressing visitor use. If you are regularly at McAfee Knob or other sites on the Triple Crown, you know that use has increased exponentially. And so we want to make sure that we're providing a quality visitor experience for all and protecting the natural and cultural resources of the area.
Great, thanks Rachel and Wendy for taking a stab at that, and thank you Martin for the question. Go to the next one that came in. It's from Cosmo. So use levels at McAfee Knob are not consistent with AT values during high peak use. How will the VUM plan reduce peak numbers, visitor numbers at the iconic sites and the connecting treadway? So let's see, this might be another planning question, sort of talking about how we're going to manage use levels and some of those tools and strategies we have to make sure our desired conditions and our trail values are being met. Back over to you, Rachel.
Yeah, I could jump into it. So one of the things that we're actively evaluating now as a part of this early process is trying to answer that question from a desired conditions perspective. What are we managing for and why when it comes to McAfee Knob? What are the desired conditions there? And we've asked, some of the questions we framed up are intentional to help expand our thinking on that and make sure that the public and the users and the stakeholders see themselves in those definitions as we write them up. We'll then be using those to say, are we or are we not meeting those conditions? And it sounds like for some folks, we're not meeting their version of a high quality experience. And so we're going to be using the interagency framework to really define what are the indicators that we might be departing from those desired conditions. What is the point that we go from acceptable to unacceptable conditions? And then what are the strategies that we might employ to more actively manage that visitation in those areas, to potentially better pace people into those areas, to encourage use of other areas, or to maybe distribute use in a different kind of way. So there isn't necessarily a single defined strategy yet, because we are so early in the process. So we do want to hear from folks kind of what strategies would help their trip. What kind of tools would help you plan your trip to know when you're going to meet up with conditions that meet with your desired experiences? You know, what tools would potentially create more barriers for you to visiting, that we would want to be thoughtfully mitigating those barriers, and thinking that through. And so all of that, this is kind of that initial, like I said, brainstorming, idea generation, thinking about issues and values conversation. And then we're going to write a lot of this up and make some recommendations in that draft plan. The other thing that I want to emphasize, because I think it's related to this question, is that the draft plan is a draft plan. And the goal of putting it out for public review is because we will make changes based on your comments about when we put out that draft plan. But we also want to be able to put all that together in a thoughtful, cohesive story, so that you guys can provide thoughtful comments on it. So that's what we'll be working on over the next winter, is putting some of those kind of pieces together of recommendations for managing the use of McAfee.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Diana from RATC would like to add some additional thoughts.
Yeah, this is to Cosmo's question that we were just talking about, and it's really not that different than the answer you're already getting, but maybe it's a little simpler. We don't know. Right now, we're in the perpetual balancing act that I think the National Park Service always faces, which is how do you protect the resource, but also provide an excellent visitor experience? And those never fit quite right. So it's a hard question. And we definitely do not know the answers yet. We don't even have a plan yet. And so we'll be coming back to you maybe around this time next year, and we're going to have a draft plan. And really, I know you deal with some of these same issues up in New England, so we'll be interested in hearing your thoughts all along the way, but we don't know. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Thanks, Diana.
Yeah.
All right, I'll move us to the next question that came in. So we have a question. What is the possibility of getting a visitor center with a bathroom? And it might depend where on whose land it's being built, but assuming maybe you're thinking of the McAfee Knob lot, I might look to Wendy to see if you would like to answer.
Sure, thanks, Emily. Great question, appreciate that. And I want to emphasize again, I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over again, but we're at the very beginning stages of the plan and haven't made any decisions yet. So that's why we're asking the public for your thoughts and your feedback on what you value about this trail segment, Virginia's Triple Crown, what's important to you, and what issues you think should be addressed. And that's going to help inform what we should consider in this planning effort. So as Rachel mentioned, we're at the early stages and we wanted to have this civic engagement, as we call it in the National Park Service, this public conversation with all of you to see what's top of mind for you. So once again, can't answer that at this point, but any comments that you have, please provide by the end of this month in writing, and then we will take those into consideration and appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, the next question here was, are you considering options for use of lands bought for viewshed protection? Let's see, do we have someone from ATC who maybe wants to chime in? Question about the new lands that were bought, I believe.
Sure, yeah, and I'm gonna assume these are, we've been able to acquire a number of properties in recent years that are within the viewshed of primarily of McAfee Knob and Dragon's Tooth. I'm not Dragon's Tooth, but McAfee Knob and Tinker Cliffs. And I believe one parcel has already been transferred to become Park Service property. The rest of it is still kind of in the works, and we're figuring that out. So if you have ideas and input, we'd certainly love to hear about it. It's certainly, as we have just started, as mentioned, only dipping our toe into kind of talking about strategies. Those lands will probably open up more options than we currently have in terms of things like new group use campsites and stuff like that.
Thanks, Catherine, and thanks for the question. All right, I'm seeing some thoughts in the chat about how someone's experience with the Park Service and the AT has given serious consideration to limiting the number of trail users. Some thoughts about how other parks have dealt with visitor use management issues. A couple examples from Yosemite, Shenandoah National Park. The Park Service has done well using these kinds of limits in order to enhance the quality experience. So thanks for those thoughts. We will note them. I'd say if you have any additional ideas about those kinds of strategies, please do provide those at the park planning website where we're taking comments, but we will note those thoughts they put in the Q&A. Thank you. The next question here is
Emily, sorry, I was just going to thank Ron Tipton. Ron made those comments. And if folks don't know Ron, he's the former CEO and president of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, who I had the privilege of working with for quite a few years. So thank you, Ron, for joining us. It's great to hear from you.
Great. Next question here was, what are the plans for developing emergency access to stay on pace with the increased use? What are thoughts on developing public education on how to safely use the trail, such as proper footwear and proper hydration? These seem to be the biggest issues leading to emergency response. See, I think a number of our panelists could take this question. I'll let someone jump in.
Well, I'm going to jump in for the Trail Club, since part of the answer is, and we're actually seeing some results from it. Emergency access. So on the McAfee section, there is a fire road to get in. And our volunteers just put in a lot of hours and half of the money for $10,000 to get that road in better shape, and more of that could come in the future. But exactly right on public education, on proper footwear and proper hydration. And we in fact have something called the McAfee Knob Task Force that our club started in partnership with the Park Service, ATC, and the Forest Service in 2015. And we work very closely with Roanoke County Fire and Rescue. In fact, we're having a session this Saturday. They let us use their facility for training. They make our name badges. And the reason they're interested in that is because they're the ones who have to do the rescues, and it costs them hundreds of man hours every time they have to do it. And Catherine can give you the numbers on this, but it's my understanding that even as the usage has continued to be going up, the number of rescues has plateaued. And we believe that a lot of that is we've got over 100 volunteers trained now that are bridge runners who are out there, and they're meeting people in the parking lot and along the way and saying, hey, this is an 8-mile walk, probably don't want to wear flip-flops. It's 95 degrees. Do you have water for you and your dog? All those questions that you're saying right there obviously are going to be many ways to get that information out, but a lot of these people are only coming here one time, and they've never been here before. They'll never be back. And so the best place for us to encounter them and educate them is right there at the parking lot or on the trail. So we feel like that's something that we've got a good start on. You can always do better. But I think that in a way has been one of the bright spots here.
Hey, if I could just tag on to that, my name is Matt Hull. I'm the Forest Service representative along with our district ranger, Beth Christensen. And Diana is spot on. And I just can't express our appreciation enough for our partners and volunteers who help do that, but also all the local county governments who do perform those search and rescues. One of the challenges that we face as an agency, as Diana alluded to, these folks are coming from all over, and they've learned about the Triple Crown from sources other than the National Park Service, other than the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, and other than the U.S. Forest Service. And so anything that y'all can make suggestions for how we can improve that messaging before folks even show up at a trailhead. Because if they brought the wrong shoes, they don't have enough water, and they've gotten and started hiking, we're already behind the time. So anything you can do to help us improve our messaging through partners or private businesses, we would love to hear that. So please provide as many comments as you can.
All right, great. Thanks for that question. And thank you, Diana and Matt, for answering. Another question just came in here. So we see commercial buses and other large groups in the parking lot at McAfee and even in Catawba. Is NPS getting any fees from this commercial use? Wendy, would you like to take this one?
Sure, the quick answer is no. Oh.
All right. Okay, I think at this point we've gotten to all the questions in the Q&A. Welcome folks to drop any last questions you may have in the chat. We've got here up on the screen a reminder of the website to please go to and submit any other comments you may have. We do have some targeted questions we'd like you to think about and answer. Your input is valued and welcome at this time. Since a note here from Martin, this is helpful to learn about how to be involved in the process, and you'll definitely submit some thoughts soon. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All right, we'll just give folks a couple minutes here. See if any last questions trickle in.
While people are noodling on that, Emily, I thought I'd also flip ahead. I'm gonna move fast, sorry, to let folks know that if you get off this call and you're like, oh, I had a question that would really help me submit better comments and thoughts, we do have also an inbox for this planning effort. If you have a question, not a comment, but a question, you can send it to appavum@nps.gov and someone will get back to you. Again, that's best for questions that'll help inform your comments. If you have comments or letters, it's really best to submit those through the project website directly. If you want a speedy response on a question, that's a good way to find one of these panelists that'll get back to you.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Rachel. So a couple questions came in. So are there funding options beyond appropriation, such as fees, et cetera? I don't know if one of our land management agencies wants to take that one.
So I'm not seeing the question. Oh, down here at the bottom. Okay.
Yeah, it was an anonymous attendee there.
So I see Beth from the Forest Service has her hand up, so maybe you can answer that from the Forest Service. Beth, for the National Park Service, the Appalachian National Scenic Trail is not a designated fee park, such as, say, Shenandoah, that was mentioned earlier. So there are always funding options that we're looking at and seeking. I'm not quite clear what the person asking the question was thinking about, but there's philanthropic support. There's other types of funding options depending upon the project or the program. So we are always, from the National Park Service, looking for additional funding and resources, and of course, working with our partners as well.
Yep, and that's similar for the Forest Service. Dragon's Tooth is a fee-free area. So we usually have to get pretty creative in terms of how we manage that site, that area, that parking, that trailhead, that parking lot, those restrooms, because it is also a, there are no fees that go into it or that go back into the maintenance. So, but there's always creative opportunities and partnering to try to figure out what's available to others in terms of entities that might not necessarily be available to us, but that we can work together on to try to figure out how to make it all work.
And if I could add, the collaboration between the agencies and our partners are really what makes the Triple Crown successful. We certainly wouldn't want to, charge a fee in one area that can negatively impact other areas. We want to think holistically about the Triple Crown and the greater Roanoke County community. And so that's really important, is that we're not just charging a fee to charge a fee. We want to create a quality visitor experience and manage the land appropriately.
Great, thanks so much for those thoughts. Okay, at this time, I believe we've answered all the questions that have come through. If there's no more questions at this time, turn it back over to Rachel to close us out.
I will just say, echo again, so looking forward to seeing your comments. Want to articulate our commitment to you. We recognize and appreciate that putting together thoughtful comments and getting those in takes your time and energy. And wanted to let you know that a human, someone from this project team who you heard from tonight, is going to read your letter. They don't go into a file somewhere. They aren't screened for keywords by Google Analytics. They go to actual people who read them and look to summarize them and pull them together. So that's our commitment to you in appreciation for the time and energy that you put into putting those comments together. So thanks in advance for your thoughtful considerations, for your ideas, for the expertise that you bring to this project. We're immensely grateful for it. And for the time that you carved out to spend some time learning and thinking with us. And with that, I will give parting thoughts to our fearless leader and superintendent, Wendy.
Thank you, Rachel. And once again, to everyone who's joined us this evening, thank you so much for your engagement, for your time. And we look forward to your written comments by March 31st and your continued engagement. This is early days, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and hearing your thoughts as we move through this process. Thank you so much and have a good rest of the evening.